Good evening. And what I uh, select to speak to you about is entitled The African Origin of Civilization. I know the subject title may be somewhat new to you, to most of you at least. To speak of the African origin of civilization almost sound impossible based upon the type of education we have had thus far in the public school system, or the type of information we gather at our churches, at our various places where we communicate with each other, and definitely in the news media. Nevertheless, I still will keep the title of my lecture to you. And it will be in two parts. First is my delivery, and the second, question and answer period. I like to deal, number one, with the subject of civilization. In the first place, I detest the term civilization because it presupposes that there are people who are civilized and people who are uncivilized, and there is no such thing. There are people whose culture differ to others, but as far as being civilized and uncivilized, there is no such thing. If I came from a place, and I'm being ridiculous with this, and in my culture we eat each other, as some say, there's nothing wrong with that. We eat each other. That's what we like to do. That's our culture. Because you don't eat, you're in a culture that don't eat each other, doesn't make you civilized and make me uncivilized. It just means that you don't like to eat each other. So I was ridiculous there just to show you that one person's culture doesn't invalidate another's. However, when I say the African origin of civilization, I was not being silly. I mean that, and let's prove it. Most of you come from a background where you were taught and believed in Adam and Eve. Long, thousands of years before the concept of Adam and Eve was enunciated by the Hebrews, what you call the Jews. Thousands of years, the Africans along the Nile had concepts of God when there was no Abraham, no Allah, no Jesus, no Jehovah mentioned anywhere. We can go back to the beginning of the first established concept of a God. The Africans along the Nile taught of a God by the name of Ptah, P-T-A-H. Also, the concept of God Osiris. Well, Osiris really is a Greek word. The name the Africans used was Asaru or Asar. They also spoke of a one and only God long before Abraham. This God was spoken about, his name called Aten, A-T-E-N, the one and only true God. It was much later that Moses is equally an African, born in Egypt. And let us check back a little. If you can recall your map of the world mentally, you would find that Egypt is in Africa. At least it was 2 weeks ago when I left it. You never could tell. It must have gone to this place called the Middle East these days. But nevertheless, Egypt is the northeasternmost part of the continent of Africa. The Africans along the Nile, not only in Egypt, from Uganda all the way down to Egypt, began their concept of civilization thousands of years before there was a place called Greece, or Pyrrhus, as it was originally called, and thousands more before a place called Etrusca, which later became Rome. Thus, I know it would make it difficult for you to conceive of this by virtue of your own training and background. Well, let us examine the facts. And these facts are available in artifacts as well as historical documents. If you go with me, travel with me along the Nile, you will have an excursion that will bring you into the facts. First of all, in order for you to read a book, you must understand writing, and primarily coming from an alphabet. When the Africans along the Nile were writing in what you call in Western terms hieroglyph, in the correct term Medu Neter. Medu Neter is what the Greek call hieroglyphs. And remind you again, there is no Greece until 833 when Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Africans along the Nile had already in 10,000 BC, I refresh your mind about that, in 10,000 BC the Africans made a calendar called the stellar calendar based upon the movement of the stars and moons around this planet, the planet Earth. There was no Adam and Eve yet mentioned because there was no Jew to start a book called the Old Testament or Holy Torah. Thus no Genesis yet. The Africans at a place, if you went to Egypt tonight or tomorrow with me, you will arrive the next day, and I can take you to a place called Esna, the temple of Khnum at Esna. And in that temple on the wall, you would see God Khnum making man on his potter's wheel out of clay. The Jews copied that and presented it, and you believe that that was the first time man ever conceived of the concept of making man from clay. And you believe that the Jews had something to it. Not at all. The Jews copied it from the Africans when they allegedly were in Egypt. Let's go further. Those same Africans revised their calendar in 10,000 BC. In 4100 BC, instead of the stellar calendar, they started another calendar called the solar calendar, based upon the Earth in relationship to the sun. That calendar set the basis of the present calendar you use. It had 365 and 1/4 day, corrected each 7th year. There were 13 months to the year, 30 days for 12 months, and 1 month of 5 days. The Ethiopian government still have the 12 month of 30 and the 1 month of 5 days. In Egypt, the farmers use the same 13-month calendar. Again, I must remind you, there isn't a single Jew in the world yet. Abraham the first isn't born. He isn't going to be born until the 13th dynastic period. And I know it's hard for you to conceive of a time when people had religions and there was no Christianity, there was no Judaism, and there was no Islam yet. They came way later, copied from the Africans. These Africans that I'm talking about established the basis of their religion and certain moral principles. The moral principles are called the 42 admonitions of Goddess Ma'at. The Hebrews adopted this, 10 out of these 42, and called them the 10 Commandments, and attributed them to an Egyptian, an African of Egypt they called Moses. But stop and think. Where did the Jews get the information? You do not have a single Jew in the world who wrote anything up until this period of time. But all along the Nile, you have what is called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Ani, the Papyrus of Hunefa, and various papyrus, the word papyrus meaning paper. Along the Nile, you also have the Africans who had produced not only these moral concepts, and let me repeat one or two for you. Hail Ma'at. Ma'at was the goddess of justice. The Supreme Court of the United States copied, during the time of Washington and others, they copied the symbol of the Africans of Egypt and Ethiopia, the symbol of justice, the lady holding a scale and each level. Not like your Supreme Court, however. Your Supreme Court have one scale up and one scale down. That's not justice. That is just this. Justice is when both scales are level. They have placed in the woman's hand a sword. The Africans did not place a hand. Now, this woman is called Hathor. In your Judeo-Christian Bible, Islamic Bible, she is mentioned at the golden calf. The writers in your Bible willfully distorted the fact and failed to say it is not the golden calf she was called. It was a symbol of the golden calf, but she was called Hathor. If you go to Egypt, you will go to a place called Dendera, and you will see the temple of goddess Hathor there. Furthermore, you have been taught in your educational system that the Greeks, or a particular Greek by the name of Hippocrates, gave to the world medicine, and he's called the father of medicine. That shouldn't surprise you, because Betty Goodman is called the father of swing. Although he went to Lionel Hampton, Count Basie, and others to learn swing, he became the father of swing. Now, if you control the printing press, you could make yourself the father of anything. You could call yourself the father of the moon. You can write anything you want. The point is, let us prove it. We don't have Hippocrates until 333. Before the Common Era. You may call it before the Christian era, or BC, as you may say. Hippocrates is shown coming to Egypt to receive his education in medicine and other things, and that was in 33 BC. Imhotep, an African by the name of Imhotep, whom the Greeks called Aesculapius, died 2058 years before the birth of Hippocrates. He was such a great physician that Hippocrates himself and other Greeks call him the god of medicine. Now, if an Imhotep was not only a physician, but he was the Grand Vizier, he was the man who built the first stone building in human history. The man who built the step pyramid, designed it, of course, and built it. He was a multi-genius. He is the man that also gives you the little quip, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die. Yet in your education, you are taught that Michelangelo was the first multi-genius. Michelangelo is only the 16th century of the Common Era. Imhotep lived more than 3,000 years before Michelangelo. It just goes to show you the type of education. The other day I was reading where Martin Luther King went to speak with Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in India to study nonviolence, and that Gandhi was the first to project nonviolence. That's nonsense. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, living in South Africa. Yes, he worked for the British Crown. He represented the British Crown while he lived in South Africa, left South Africa because he was forced to ride on a train with Africans. And he left and then went to India and suddenly became a nationalist. He was a racist. Now, we can get the facts or we don't deal with it. Because King himself did not know. But Akhenaten had not only teach nonviolence more than 1,700 years before Gandhi was born, but Akhenaten took the throne of Egypt. He brought his cousin Semenkhkare to rule on the throne with him. This is the 18th dynasty. He got rid of the army to practice nonviolence. Akhenaten, the same Akhenaten, taught about a one and only true God thousands of years before Gandhi and hundreds before Moses. We got to go back again to the records. I know this is startling a number of you because you haven't heard any of this, or at least you must have just started to hear some of this. That is why this furor now that they're having about whether or not Jesse Jackson started to call people African American. That's another piece of nonsense. Long, hundreds of years before the birth of Jesse Jackson, the name African Americans were used. Not only African Americans, but the Africans who came here called themselves Africans. You got, as the best memory, a church within your midst called the African Methodist Episcopal Church. The First Baptist Church was called the African Baptist Church. African people refer to themselves as Africans. Africans who educated Europeans, such as the Moors in Spain. Well, you may know it as Los Moros de España. The Moors in Spain built Europe's first university, taught the Europeans the concept of a university. The University of Granada and the University Al-Hada, all of them preceded any other university in all of Europe. The Moors went into Spain in 711 and did not lose power in Spain until 1485. That was a period of 774 years that Africans ruled that section of Europe. The Africans went into what was called Pyrrhus, now today Greece, and built Pyrrhus' first center of learning called Delphi, the lodge at Delphi. From Plato, go earlier, from Homer down to Aristotle, including Thales to Socrates, all of them came to Egypt and Nubia, or Egypt, Nubia, and Ethiopia to receive their education. Pythagoras, for example, said that when he came to receive his education on the Nile, he had to follow the custom of giving a silver goblet before he was circumcised and allowed to study. Not one of them completed the story. For those of you who are Christians, and born again or not, you may think that it is something exceedingly new. But you don't forget that long before this concept of the Virgin Mary, the African, and you may go to the temple of Setai at a place called Abydos, again in Egypt, and you will see in the wall, cut into the stone, not only the story in writing, but the pictures of the Immaculate Conception of Isis. The Roman Catholic has a prayer that is a copy from this. Holy Isis, Mother of Horus, blessed is the fruit of your womb. The Catholic adopted it as Holy Mary, Mother of God Jesus, blessed is the fruit of thy womb. You got to remember that this came from Egypt to Greece, and from Greece to Rome as the Herculaneum worship of Isis. You may go into the same temple and see the resurrection scene. In those resurrection scenes, and it had nothing to do with a woman having her hymen and getting pregnant. That's ridiculous. You are now studying biology and you know that is impossible. The Africans along the Nile stated that a woman who became pregnant And by her last menstrual period, she had not cohabited with but one man she definitely knew, for whom she was pregnant, had an immaculate conception. That was the way it was said until the Nicene Conference of Bishops in 332. It is then that the Greeks and others introduced the concept of having a hymen and being pregnant, and that is the Immaculate Conception. It was not said until 332. I know these things are difficult, and probably you're even angry, but your anger doesn't change facts. You must do the research. You must learn, you must read other books, such as I know that you have read the Torah, or the Old Testament and the New Testament. They aren't the first religious books. Man, there's the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindus have. There is the Book of the Dead and the Papyrus of Ani and the Pyramid Text, the Coffin Text, the Osirian Drama, and all such works, thousands of years older than your Old Testament or New Testament or Quran. Thousands of years older. By Africans. Not only your Christian Bible taught that Jesus was born in a cave in Ethiopia long before they changed that at the Nicene Conference to a manger in Bethlehem. And for many of you who are going to have the problem when you go to heaven and find that Jesus is black, I know you're going to have a lot of problems, because in your church you see your white Jesus. And I know if you went to your church in the morning and saw a black Jesus, you're going to faint, more than faint. Some of you are going to die, because you're not going to the heaven with no black God up there. You know that. You're accustomed to say nigger and shit, and you know you say it all the time. So I don't use the term. The word is contemptible. I can't stand people who use the term. I'm just repeating what you say. But then you have to ask the Pope in Rome, why is it that he goes back to Poland to worship at the feet of the Black Madonna and Child? Why is the Black Madonna and Child all over the Spanish-speaking countries? Why is it so? Why is it that the Black Madonna icons are all over Russia? Because what you have gotten is Christianity of modern times. Don't forget that Christianity started in Egypt with Pantheus and Boetius, then went to Greece, and from Greece to Rome. I think many of us can quote Bible scripture, but we don't know Bible history. The African that I'm talking about now gave you mathematics. You can't name me one figure, one number was developed or given to the world in Europe. You can't name one. The 1 to the 9 came out of the Nile Valley, and the 0 or the O came from the Arabs and the Indians. None of these came from Europe. You can't name me one alphabet in which Europe produced. Yet hieroglyph and writing came from the Nile Valley Africans. And these are the things that we have to understand. If we understand these things, and it's going to be difficult, and some of you can't deal with it, because it is difficult for us to understand ourselves. And some people get to dislike the fact to hear that they did something good. You know, I could train you to hate yourself. Yeah, that when you look in the mirror, you're mad. You're mad that you look like your mama. Yeah. Or you're mad that you look like your father. Because what you have been told by your father and Tarzan and Jane and all that have sunk into your psyche. And anything that you hear good about yourself, that's where the nigger ain't shit come from. I hear the young people on the subway. Man, you saw the game last night? That white boy, he threw the ball, and the nigger, he catch the ball, and the nigger throw back the ball, and the white boy. So one is a white man, and the other one is a nigger. I want to know, what is a nigger? Maybe you can tell me, because I'm trying to find one, and two things I'm trying to find, a nigger and a Negro. I haven't met one yet. If I did, please help me. we have to be careful then of what we are talking about in terms of ourselves. Today, when we are arguing the point of African American, and some of you are still holding to colored, what color should I color you colored? Huh? Rainbow? Jesse said it's a rainbow coalition. I don't see the black in the rainbow spectrum. And some of you complaining every night there was a blackout. There have never been a blackout. Black have always been black. If you turn off the light, it's black. Don't put no light. It's going to be black tomorrow. It's going to be black for the next 10,000 years. You have to put a light, so it's never black out, it's light out. Another thing, you said, it's a bad day. It's a black day. The president issued a white paper. That's a good paper. You understand? Don't put a black mark on my record. His child is the black sheep of the family. If you black, your mama black, and your father black, what kind of sheep you are but a black sheep? Huh? But to you, anything that's bad is black. And anything, I was listening to a song the other day, and they were singing it in a Baptist church. The AME has the same song, so don't feel good about it. Lord, make me whiter than snow. Wash me in the blood of... No, this is no nonsense. You're jet black. Wash you in the blood, in red stuff. And you'll be whiter than snow. Now, you know you're sad. You got a sad case. Huh? But it's all men. No time you said, wash me and I'll be blacker than charcoal. You can't say that. And that's what I'm trying to say. It is they have already damaged us so badly that we cannot see ourselves as being positive. We have, and the other day, there's another one, the lady was saying that when she go to heaven, she's going to be wrong the white altar of the Lord. I said, why white altar? But it has to be white to be good. And all of us, to be sure that we can't, I remember when I was a youngster, the ladies used to lie down with 2 tons of Pond's cold cream and all kind of whitener and lightener, and they had a headrest, and they lay like that and got a crunk neck in the morning trying to get lighter, skin lightening cream. And I suggested that we get some skin blackening cream, and I almost got killed for suggesting that. But one asked, why is it? Why is it the problem? They're calling up now and contesting the question of being called African American. Some people want to go back to be called colored. And when Frederick Douglass started that concept of being colored, it was because Lincoln had given him a beat-up woman in Washington who was already played out to be his new wife. And Douglass took this wife, this white woman, his black wife had died, and then he came to Philadelphia to protest at the colonization meeting that he doesn't want to be called black anymore. He doesn't want to be called an African. He said, call me colored. I have a white mother and a black father. Thus I am colored. Henry Highland Garnet asked him, Mr. Douglass, do you realize that a mule never brag about his father? You know why? Because his father is a jackass. And you are a jackass, sir. You're trying to tell me that in this culture in which you are, that matters. And Douglass was the one that started the use of the term colored. The Portuguese was the one that started the use of the word Negro in the 16th century. They even took a part of what was ancient Ghana and called it Negro land. So you could look at some of the ancient maps and see Negro land. But the Portuguese knew there was no such place because the Africans had gone into Portugal, the Moors, and established Portugal's educational system. Before the Moors went into Spain and Portugal, they had gone in there with another title. They went in there as Carthaginians. During the time of Hamilcar Barca, his son Hasdrubal Barca, and Hannibal Barca. Hannibal Barca is the man that is still studying at West Point. The first man to begin what was called mechanized army warfare, not using cars and trucks, but using the elephant as a ramrod with his troop. That's been studied, as I said, at West Point to this date. We have to understand again that in architecture, go to Egypt. They show you arches that are called Gothic arch, Roman arch. There is no such thing. Long before there was a building anywhere in Greece and Rome, and I suggest that you go to Rome and see the Colosseum, go to Greece outside of Athens and see the Pantheon, and then go to the temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari at the Valley of the Kings in Egypt and see where they copy it. Go to the temple of Setai at Abydos and see where they copied this, and then go to Karnak and see where the Romans copied the design for the Colosseum. And then you can go to Washington, D.C. and see how they copy that. Not only that, the National Memorial, Washington Memorial in Washington, D.C. is nothing but a major penis. Yes? When you go to Egypt, you will find that that is a copy of the obelisk. And the obelisk is based upon a part of the mythological story of the murder of Osiris by his brother Set-Typhon. See, don't even know that. You tell me that Adam and Cain killed Abel the first time a man ever killed another one, killed his brother. Nonsense. Thousands of years before that story, the African had a story of Osiris being killed by his brother Set-Typhon. His nephew, Heru, revenged the killing of his uncle and his father, and killed his uncle Set-Typhon. That is the reason that you see on your dollar bill the ever-seen eye of Horus. In the war against his father, he lost his left eye. You call it the evil eye. It had nothing to do with evil eye. And you see it on embossed on the pyramid with the sunburst, God Ra, the symbol of God Ra around it. But you never ask. You see an American dollar. America has no pyramid. Huh? But you never ask, where did this come from? George Washington and others who were Masons adopted these symbols from Egypt. The only one in the cabinet who was not a Mason in Washington's cabinet was Benjamin Franklin, because he was a Quaker. And there was an African in the cabinet, don't forget. A man born in a place called Nevis. His mother was an African, his father was an Englishman. I know you wasn't in. You go up on the hill at 151st Street. Just below Convent Avenue, it's called Hamilton Greece. That's the answer. Alexander Hamilton was born in Nevis in the West Indies of an African mother and an English father. Grew up in St. Croix in the Children home, the home where the white fathers used to send the rich white plantation owners used to send their children with black women to be educated because they didn't want to keep them with their wives, their white wives. They were called Bokras, the Bokra. So we have to know our history and know it well in order to regain our dignity. One of the things that we are doing, we are asking European America to teach us African history. You're crazy. You got to do that yourself. American education have never failed. It have never been better. It is the best education in America. It was designed for Europeans when it started, and it's still designed for Europeans. This school Cornell University, where I retired, Harvard, is designed for Europeans, not for Africans, in spite of the fact that each and every institution in Europe is based upon an African university. It was the University of Djenne, D-J-E-N-N-E, in ancient Ghana, that was the model for the University of Salamanca, the first university in all of Europe built by the Moors. It was the Moors under Tariq who went in to Spain, took over a place called Monscal. His men changed the name to Gibraltaric, which they now call Gibraltar, and carried the first Renaissance into Europe. Even today, the patron saint of Germany is still Maurice Aragon, a Nigerian, originally from Nigeria. Cletus Bactria and all of them gave Greece the concept of sword fighting. But all of this, nothing of it. Take your History 101. Take your textbooks that you're studying. Have you seen any of this there? Take your textbooks and ask. In there, you're going to the moon. You with all the apparatus. Could you go to the moon without the basic mathematics? No, you can't. Most of you are women and involved with the struggle that's going on now about birth control and right to life and all this kind of stuff. Of course, people who want right to life, they don't want the baby to die now, that the mother to abort the child. But all those people who have a right to life, they're also for capital punishment. They say, let the child born now, and we'll kill him later. See, I like to tell it, I don't care where I am. The truth is the truth. But then, we as a people never had to worry about it, because the Ebers Papyrus talks about Planned Parenthood, that the African woman, even during the time of Hatshepsut, that's 1550 BC, queen, the only woman who ruled as a king and a queen simultaneously. Don't get her wrong, she was not a lesbian. She had 2 children and enjoyed the sex act. She had her scientists to make a suppository to stop pregnancy. It's called Ebers Papyrus. It calls for the shrub of acacia with honey, which break down into lactic acid that trap the sperms. Park Davis, Monsanto, and a number of Western pharmaceutical companies that go around the world found this formula. Check it out, and that's how you got autogenal jelly, which is used in diaphragm today to trap the sperms. But are they blasting it on the radio saying where they got it from? Huh? You hear about Jonas Salk, what he did, but do you hear anything about Charles Drew? You hear about heart transplant, but do you hear anything about the brother there that performed the first open heart surgery in his office? A doctor, excuse me with this one, from Chicago, but I will come back and I'll get the name for you. None of it. You got the electric light. And when you come in and you pull a switch, it was years and years and years that they dealt with the truth of who created the filament. The man that made the bulb, that's nothing. It is the filament that makes the light. Latimer. They didn't give any credit to Latimer, who worked in the office for Thomas Edison, no more than they give credit to Granville T. General Motors Company existed for over 20 years using the patents of Granville T. Woods. Never given a dime to his estate. They had to go to the federal court before General Motors started paying the proper dividend for pilfering, stealing the patent of Granville T. Woods and using them. We could go on with Sayers and Roebuck. And many of you have bought many shoes and different things from Sayers and Roebuck and National Bella Hess and so forth, and had no concept that one of the partner was an African that started Sayers and Roebuck. Now, there's a new thing. I just laughed like hell the other day. And they said that Ben Ward, for the second time, is going to make an apology to the Latin community. Why? Why did Ben Ward have to make an apology? Because Ben Ward doesn't know. He make an apology to me. My mother's a Puerto Rican. My mother's from Fajardo. Son Caridoro, son ella. Huh? Then is he making, you see, that's another thing, because you call yourself so many crazy names that you don't know what. The other day I was saying, I saw a Latino and a Puerto Rican and a black man and an African American going down the street. What the hell are you talking about? You're mixing up the color. You see, if you said, I saw an African American, a Puerto Rican, a Jamaican, that's right, because you're talking about people identified by land. But if you say, I saw a Latino, that's a linguistic term. Latin, a person with Latin background, linguistic term. And one was black. You were using color one place, language the next place, and land. People are identified by land. An African is from Africa. You know, if I said, when the first, if you see a rabbit, female rabbit, of course, climb into an oven, cool oven. The next day you see the rabbit come out, the little ones look like the rabbit. You don't have mama, the rabbit got biscuit because it's coming out the oven. She got rabbits. When you see an African woman come to the United States and she get young ones, she don't get Negroes and jigaboos and chigaboos. She get Africans. And these are the things that some of you are scared, if you're from Puerto Rico, you're scared to wear loud colors because Europeans don't wear loud colors. You don't want to eat cuchifrito and rice and beans because the Europeans don't eat rice and beans. And you don't want to play loud music because the Europeans don't. They don't play loud because it don't sound right. And if you're from the States, you don't eat hagma and collard green and chitlin. You don't do that. Because the Europeans don't eat. You don't cook your food with grease and all those things because the Europeans don't. That's why the food tastes like nothing. You got to qualify everything that somebody else do and destroy what is your culture. Because you're ashamed of your identity. And the reason you're ashamed of it because you don't know it. But when you know it, you walk 10 feet tall. Like Ossie Davis said about Malcolm, the shining prince, you see, who walked 10 feet tall. They got to remind you that you were this and yesterday. But don't forget, the scum of Europe came here. Huh? The good Europeans didn't come to America. The whole state of Georgia was a penal colony. Here is where the British and the French and all send their scums. And the scums became the gentlemen. Paul Revere was a rum runner. Used to run from the revenue officers, the British officers. All of them were scums. George Washington was a dog. I know that will hurt you. That's the father of your country. You don't want to hear that. You say, what this man talking about? If Hitler was bad, what did Washington do that Hitler didn't do? You know, Thomas Jefferson, do you call him a gentleman? Thomas Jefferson said, all men are created equally. The day he died, he had slaves. He left slaves. As a matter of fact, he went down the yard and made some slaves with some African women. Are you going to say that Jefferson was a good man? I remember when the NWC used to have dressed up young people with starch and iron, white clothes, going to the Jefferson Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial, and I said, why don't we get sense enough and carry some bombs and blow the damn things out the world? But no, you mad with me. How could you be mad with me? How could you like these slave masters but condemn Hitler? How? Is it when you treat an African bad as a slave, it is good? But when anybody else are treating it the same way, it's bad. When de Gaulle was running all the way from the Germans, he's going to come back with all the Africans helping him to get back to France. How come, as soon as he got back to France, he didn't let the colonies go? Isn't it true? Are you saying that Mussolini was good when he killed Ethiopians, gassed them? That Hitler was good when he killed the Senegalese over there, but he was bad when he did it to Europeans? Then we have to get a re-examination of things. And it all goes back to the value of how we see ourselves. It goes back to when we look in the mirror. I always make sure I carry a little mirror with me in my pocket because I want to look at the best thing in the world. No and again. Yeah, that's the way I feel. You see, when I see a picture of me, I see a picture of my mother and father simultaneously. And I know, heaven knows that woman was something. I talk to my moms. So that's why Daddy went after her. I don't blame the boy. The brother had very good reason to run after the sister. But that's the way I look. I look at myself as what's happening. I am the first and last thing that ever happened. You understand? That's why you'll never see me with drugs, because I am too cool to use drugs. I mean, I can't disturb. You see, I can't disturb this precious golden body. See, Mama and Daddy took too much patience to make me. I wasn't one of those flash of the moment. They took time to create. They had to take time to create a precious item like me. You got to see why. I know my history. I know where I came from. I know what I did in this world. Today, you see me. You know, you see a man or a woman in the street and you say, hey. You see me today, you might not know what I was yesterday. So instead of calling me by my name or asking me, you call me, hey, you. But hey, you have a background. I have a background. And then people say, well, don't tell me what I was. Tell me what I am. Then I ask you, then don't celebrate your birthday. Huh? Why celebrate your birthday every year if you don't want to hear what happened way back there? Don't carry a birth certificate. Don't celebrate the 4th of July because you ain't got nothing to celebrate on the 4th of July. If you know your history, you would moan and pray and beg the heavens not to remember the 4th of July. Because when the Europeans here got freed from England, they did not free you. That's 1776, and yet you are there celebrating the bicentennial. Hey, you were running up and down. We got a bicentennial, 200 years of freedom. What the hell are you talking about? You're not free now. 1865, a guy named Lincoln, one of the biggest liars that ever lived, promised you 50 acres and a mule. You haven't got the mule's tail. And an acre. And you're talking. That's why they're afraid. The New York Times writing all kind of articles about the African American. Why they want to call themselves that? You know why? When you call yourself African American, the next step is to call yourself African alone. And when you do that, you're going to say, I want reparations. That's why they're fighting again, because the Japanese got reparations for being locked up in World War II. The Jews got reparations from Germany. Everybody got reparations. We ain't got a penny yet. All because our so-called intellectuals feel we are too good to ask, to demand reparations. But I'm going to see. that the Langner bill will be revived, that Senator Langner and Adam Powell had presented to the Congress for reparations for every African living in these United States. Because we don't forget, and I'm winding down, see how not knowing history, what it does for us. A few years ago, there were some people dying off the coast of Florida in boats. There were some people dying in the Pacific. You were crying for those dying in the Pacific. You call them the boat people. But you didn't shed a tear for one Haitian dying because you don't know that the first Africans brought to the Western Hemisphere were brought from Spain to Haiti. Your ancestors are Haitians. You didn't come straight from Africa here. You came from Africa to Spain. And when the Africans lost power in 1485 in Spain, 4,000 of them were brought from Spain to the Caribbean, first to Haiti, then to Cuba, then to Jamaica, because Jamaica was still under Spanish rule, and then to Puerto Rico and the other islands. It was in 1501 that they were brought to the Caribbean. It was not until 1619 that the first were brought from the island of Barbados to Virginia. They weren't intended it when they were going to England, but bad weather forced them into Virginia. And that was the first. And they didn't come as slaves. They came as they were made indented workers. One was a doctor, two were architects. It was 13 years later that they imposed slavery and the Africans who came here. And there were Africans who came here long before the Europeans. Look at Estebanico, little Esteban that came with Cortez. Esteban was in New Mexico long before any European arrived there with going west and the covered wagon. To the point that the Aztec and others made him one of the great chiefs, or great head of state is nonsense but chief. That's a European name. It was right here. The war against the Seminoles was fight because an American white captain wanted to mess with the daughter of the chief of the head of the Seminole Nation, who had married to an African, because when an African ran away from the Europeans, many of them were given protection by the indigenous people that are called Indians. You go out to Long Island and look at the Indians there. You can't tell the difference of the people in here. You all went so much with the Indians that the Indians look like you now. So when you said, well, I got Cherokee background, big deal, everybody got something to do. Then someone said you run away to the Indians, it's no big deal to say, I got Cherokee, look at it. So what? You don't see my mess there? Big deal. But we got to get it together. Garvey came and tried to get you to get it together. Malcolm tried to get you. King tried to get you together. Du Bois tried to get you together. Harriet Tubman tried to get you there. So Sojourner Truth, Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, everybody tried to get you together. But you won't get together for nothing. We stay here and arguing who come from Little Island, who come from Big Island, who come from the right state, who come from the wrong state, who eat agma, who don't eat agma, who eat vegetable, who eat crab meat, all kind of junk. Hey, well, who prayed to the right, to the left, who prayed to Jesus, who prayed to Muhammad? The cracker don't care which one of them you pray to. That's right. You don't care what you eat. You still on the list. HNC. You don't care if you speak Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, French. Doesn't matter. He got a spot for you. And it sure ain't pretty. He don't care if you got PhD or no D at all. When he hanging black folks, he hanging the D's too. and may hang them first, because you know the deeds are supposed to be helping those who don't have the deeds to free themselves. And that's why I told my woman, I got a wife. It's my woman. See, I ain't gonna talk no nonsense about Ms. and a chairperson. What you talking about, chairperson? A chairwoman and a chairman. Nobody gonna tell me to talk stupid because Gloria Steiner can't find a man. She gonna tell me that I gotta talk. Hell, the way she look, I wouldn't bother with her either. No, all these kind of, then you lock up in all this nonsense. Somebody tell me, you're a senior citizen. How the hell am I going to be a senior citizen? I was never a junior one. I am an old man. A 72-year-old man. And I'm going to get older. And if you don't like the fact that I'm old, later for you. I don't care about you. You think I'm scared to tell you I'm 70 going on 90? You think I'm afraid that you don't like the fact that I am that? I like the fact because if I wasn't, I'd be dead. Right. Huh? And I'm in no hurry to go see no God. No. The devil and God will have to come and take me because I ain't going voluntarily. And I'm not going voluntarily. That's it. I'm not foolish. I don't know nothing about heaven or the hell. I know here, and I don't want to leave none of you women. You tell me, I'm ready to go. If you're so ready, drink some arsenic. You're ready to go. I am not ready. I'm not preparing to leave this world. The sisters look too good for me to be going off. Just deal with it. I mean, let's be rational. Let's deal with life. And then brothers wouldn't be good. If we know and recognize ourselves, then sisters could tell the brother. Right now, sister said to the brother, I ain't seen my period. 22 years later, she waiting to hear the brother respond. By the time she said that, he disappeared like the invisible man. Then one day, 22 years later, he said, where our child? Huh? Sister can't even walk in the street with clothes, much less short dress. The brother's raping her and eyeballs. You rape her with his eyeballs, and when you catch her, you know what happened. Instead of the sisters running to the brother when she see him glad, she knows she's protected, she got to run like hell from him. Because he doesn't know his history. He doesn't know the quality of the culture that he came from. There was a time when the sister ran to the brother. Huh? She know that when the lion was coming, she could run to the brother. When anything come in danger, she could run to the brother. Now she see him. He's speaking Spanish, she's scared. He's speaking English, she's scared. He come from Puerto Rico, Cuba. He come from Harlem. He come from Jersey. She's scared. Because the reputation, he will rape a flea if it's female. Why? Because he has lost his consciousness. He tells his sister, bitch, get your black ass here. Yeah, he hollers in the street, I'll put my foot in you. That's his behavior. He's lost that man who drew pictures. Go to temples, draw pictures of the woman, the African woman in the ceiling. He showed her giving birth to the sun. Go in the temples at Dendera, and you see how that man drew when he had his mind together, when he respected his woman. And that's what happened. That's what happened by the loss of history. We lost our culture. We lost our respect. Huh? Brothers walking around with brand new Mercedes-Benz. Got 5 children out there, don't know if the child eats. Huh? You tell me? You ask me how you going to do it? You put the young sisters in parade. Little sisters, 14, 15, you got them on top of the TV, walking across the stage. You ain't got one brother line up walking across the stage. They get it with a finger? Huh? You mothers haven't told your sons. You haven't one day sat down and said to your son, this is your sister. I too am a woman. You don't want a man to do this to your sister or your mama. Huh? You didn't tell your son. When you hear he got 3 girls knocked up pregnant, you say, my son is strong. But your daughter gets knocked up and you say, bitch, whore, slut. But you never call your son any kind of name like that because you don't teach him. You don't teach him his responsibility to the sister. You don't have to worry about the teenage pregnancy. If you teach that young boy, you mothers, teach your son. You fathers, talk to your daughters and let them know the responsibility. Brothers go and get the sisters pregnant on campus and think that he has a right to continue education, but she doesn't. No child of mine, no male child of mine get a girl pregnant. I told them, don't sleep with what you can't walk with. If you can't marry her, don't sleep with her. Huh? Our culture, these are the ways. Brothers are talking now about polygamy, having 3 wives. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with polygamy if you're going to follow the rules of polygamy. 3 wives, 3 houses. And each house, if one house got a Cadillac, all houses got Cadillac. If one house got a license, and then marriage is not a jive. Every wife must have a license. Each wife must be a wife, not a wife and a girlfriend. Huh? Not one that you take out 2 o'clock in the night, get her back before 5, before the rooster crow. No, a wife is a wife. That in Africa, when you got 3 wives or 4 wives, each of them are wives, and the community accept them. And no nonsense, but you in the corner selling candle and incense and perfume, and she walking and bringing welfare check, and you talking about you got a wife? No, you're not a polygamist. That isn't polygamy. That's promiscuity. And you jiving the sister telling her, but we married, we got our own spiritual way. You're a damn liar. You just getting a piece free. I'm going to stop now because the reason, then you could see, the reason for knowing yourself, the reason for knowing your culture is not just to say, I know it, but it must change you. It must make a better you. When you know what you have done, how you have suffered, how you have lived, what you have done for the world, it should make you live a better life. Like I said, this is my 3rd wife. I killed 2 already. I was so sweet, they decided this is heaven, I gotta go. And I'm working at this one for the last 40 years. This one won't go yet. She's trying to kill me. And but you see, if this wife die in the morning, I am going to get married in 30 days. What I want to be living in a house with no sister. Me? No, it's too beautiful. Sisters, like the brother said, I can't find a good wife. I said, well, you looking at the whole house? You must be looking at the whole house. You mean tell me all these beautiful, good sisters, you can't find one? What happened to your eyes? Or your senses? He can't find one because he hasn't found himself. He doesn't have trust because he doesn't know the quality of a woman. And last, I'm going to finish with this. He doesn't know that it is that sister that take the guts from a pig with all, let me use it with all the shit in it. I got to use it the way it's said down home. It said Jesus spoke the language of the people. I'm speaking the language of the people. And take a stick, push all that shit out of it. Hot water and lemon. Clean it. Tenderize it. Give it taste. To give that man protein. You understand? That's what the sister did. And he letting somebody tell him because the sister make more. But look at this class. Why not? Look at the class. 99% women. It's not your fault. The brother could have been here. But the brother will drive you to the door, sit down there with the heater going. You come upstairs and study and come back. When you get the diploma, he wants you to stay. What you going to stay for with that dummy? Go get you a man, get you a man with some sense. A man who knows what he's going to do. A man who wants to do something. You don't want to bog down yourself as an ignoramus. He came here with you. And then that's what I said. So this lecture is dedicated to the struggling black woman. Because, yes, let us say, were it not for her carrying the ball these days, when you go to graduation, look at the brothers who come into school and flunk out. Brothers believing by offing each other at school, while sisters try to get something going. We got to recognize the fact. We can't listen to the stupid sociologists tell us that black women want to rule. What's wrong with it? A black woman give birth to me? I ain't got no hang up about that. I came out of a black woman. I didn't come out of a black father. My father sent the sperms out, not the child, the sperms. For you brothers who think that you got a baby come out of you, you're a damn fool. A sperm come out of you and meet the ovum, but the child is made in her, not you. And some of you jealous because of that. Jealous with the sister because you can't give birth. It ain't no problem. It's a compliment. It's a thing between two people. And I'm happy. That's why I say yes, polygamy. Because the African man say, okay, you have the child. 2 years you don't have to work. 2 years you don't have to have no sex with me. Stay there, nurse the child, you get healed, the child get big enough for 2 years. Then the other wife will take care of things. See, polygamy got rules. It ain't just quick, and it ain't got very little sex. Because, I got to really end. And because polygamy says, and for all of you who take the sex, the average woman in polygamy is only good to her husband 12 days a month. Because she has a period of cleanliness. Before the period, she must refrain. You got to keep meticulous record. Then the period, the menstrual period, she must refrain. Then she got 3 days of the menstrual period for waiting for the drain. Then she got a ritual bath. Only 12 days in the month. She may have any sexual intercourse with a man. So what you're thinking about, sex is the base, sex is the least of the base. Least of the base of a polygamous marriage. And most of the time, most cultures in Africa, the first woman select the second. The two select the third. The three select the fourth, etc., etc. And then their marriages arranged by families. And I say, we came from a beautiful past. We came from a rich past. Obviously, we're a rich people. And I say, it took the man and the woman, but today, let us give the sister the credit as it's due. I know you must have some questions. I may have kept you too long, but I got steamed up. This history gets me sometimes very involved. Any questions? I can't be that bad.
You know, you really don't know what to ask. The only thing I can say is, when you said about Barbados and Virginia, my mother was born in Barbados. Oh. And when she retired, she lived in Virginia for about 7 years. She's just moved back to New York.
What a coincidence. She reversed the tour. Yes, yes, ma'am.
You know, being into the story and everything, do you think black people here in the United States will ever get together as a whole?
We are together. You see, when you are at the bottom of the heap, it seems as if you're doing nothing. But always remember this. Where you are, nobody gave it to you. You died. You see, every generation, you give something for the next step. And every generation, there are people who want to put you back wherever you were. We didn't get this way by praying. We got this way by dying, giving our body. You see, there's a woman the other day, I said the other day, relatively speaking, who got on a bus and said, I'm tired going in the back. I am not going any damn place. I'm sitting here. They said, go in the back where you belong. She said, make me go in the back. Nobody expected that one day that nice lady who used to walk in and go in the back finally said, I'm not going. You gotta kill me. That woman made king. Not king made her. Huh? That woman, when Shuttleworth came and took up the flight, you know, you don't hear about Shuttleworth and all of them. As a matter of fact, King was have been nothing if Mama King, his mother, is the one that tell him get in the fight. When they asked him to come, he refused. It is Mama King that tell him she didn't send him to Boston to come back a little punk. He must go in the fight, not get up in the ivory tower. Yes, Mama King that got shot at the piano. Yeah, that's the one. So the sister is always behind her man, side her man, in front her man, with her man, pushing her man. You see? So, no, we've been fighting. Look, Malcolm X, Garvey, Du Bois, Natona, we have never failed to fight. Never. From the day they took the first one of us and put on a boat to bring across that Atlantic, we fought. Sisters throw their children to the shark rather than let their children come to slavery. That's the heroic deeds that sisters did. You should read the story of Sojourner Truth. Rape, 4 children, 4 raped. First by her master, the master's son. Then they put the footman, the black footman, to rape her. And the time when she decided to get some fun out of this thing by herself, the ministers condemned her for being a loose woman. That's why for a long time, the church didn't allow you to talk about Sojourner Truth. They said she was loose, that she had 4 children for 4 different men. But nobody talked, you know. You saw the average woman out here that got 3 children with 3 different surnames. Food is the reason. Hunger. None of these brothers going to give her a dime. So the first guy hit a child. He tell her, oh, I love you. You know I love you. I like you like hog love molasses. And then she surrenders. Give up the virginity. And he said, well, I ain't going to marry you. She said, why? He said, I want a woman who's a virgin. But he just took it. Then the next one come and say, I am not like him. So she get careless, no birth control, and she get pregnant. So she said, I am not bothering with men again. Rent is due, no food in the cupboard, and everything like that. And a brother comes by, what's she gonna do? Boom, another baby. It isn't promiscuous, it's hunger. You understand? And we better get it clear. We better stop letting those fellows like, what is his name, to write the book, Billingsley, Black Family in White America, using standards and talking about promiscuous behavior and so forth, basing it on Middle America, and ain't got nobody more promiscuous than Middle America. And using those standards to judge our women. We got to have our own standard. I think that the African woman in the United States is a miracle worker. She takes $100 and buys $300 worth of grocery.
And I think more what the lady meant was, like for instance on my job, they have divide and conquer. Okay? It happens that like it's blacks and Hispanics. So it's a divide and conquer thing. They're giving a few blacks promotions and therefore they're kissing. Okay? Some Hispanics, they give them promotions. You know, the same old same.
But that's the problem.
And it's divided.
Suppose I was at the job. How did I get my promotion? Hispanic or black? My mother's a Puerto Rican.
Well, you're a combination.
Okay. that's the.
You wouldn't get it.
But that's the mistake. We allow them to categorize us as Hispanics and as blacks. If we tell them, you know, you go to Puerto Rico, what is the combination? They're Caribs, the indigenous people, they're Africans, and they're Europeans that make up. You name me one Puerto Rican family that's been in Puerto Rico 50 years, and I bet you I will show him black, yellow, brown in that family. And he could come here, look as white as snow, or as black as star, and I show him his family. So this nonsense that they put us just a Latino, just a pure junk. They're going to tell you all these classifications and rule all of you with all the classifications. If we would say we are a people that develop our own integrity in the Western world, and you don't categorize us. You don't tell me I'm this, that, or others. I decide myself. When my little daughter was born here in Sydenham, there used to be a Sydenham hospital then.
Yes, I worked there.
The nurse put down on my child's birth certificate, race Negro. When they bring the birth certificate, I said, this don't belong to us. So the nurse said, yes, isn't that Colette Johannan? I said, it's a Colette, but I'm a child. They said, why? I said, I don't have a Negro child. They said, well, his wife is a Negro and you're a Negro. I said, no, you ain't looking right. My wife is an African and I'm an African. My wife is black and I am black. No, if you put any of those categories, it is my child. But she said, no, you are that. I said, well, I'll tell you what, you keep it because I don't want it. We went to the court. Judge Leibowitz was then the judge. And Leibowitz asked, what is on your marriage certificate? We got the Africans. He says, please, he's an African. He got on his marriage certificate African. The application say African. They can only have an African child. You see, it's what you allow people. You determine, and go to court if necessary. You determine what you are and have the guts to fight it. You must have something worth dying for. Otherwise life means nothing. You must have something that you're not going to move on. And that you decide what people are going to call you. Don't let them call you what they want. And it will change. People want to see you stand up and don't take no kicking around. I mean, I've been fired from about 49 schools. Not for incompetency, but for standing up. And I'm going to stand up all the time.
I'll stand up to the devil himself.
But the devil ain't bad. Don't knock the devil. He must be good. Most people following him.
That's true.
Yes, Mom. Oh yes, good point. That means the African-centric aspect of history.